bought books. Oops. Hello everybody, I'm Roxy and this is Recompías. So first of all, please excuse the constant humming of that machine over there. I'm in Recife in Brazil and it's very hot. I went on vacation with my dad. It was tons of fun. We are leaving today and the thing is that there are a couple of really good bookstores, my favorite of which is Livraria Cultura. It's amazing. It's also in Rio de Janeiro and I just love it very much. Also, there's lots of traffic. Anyways, great bookstores, great books, so let's begin. First book I want to talk to you about is The Modern World, 10 Great Writers by Malcolm Bradbury. Malcolm Bradbury is an expert on modernism. He co-edited the Modernism book by Penguin and also the Penguin book of modern British short stories, so he's really great. This book I found at a secondhand bookstore. It was dirt cheap. I really love it because it was originally purchased by one Fernando at Cambridge in August of 1990, so basically almost 5 years before I was born. It's not like super written on, but it does have tiny arrows pointing at stuff. I think that's great. I don't know if you can see the notes, but yeah, and I'm so happy I found it. It was literally the first book I saw when I entered that bookshop. Okay, then I went to SBS International, which is an international bookstore. It's also in Argentina. They sell books in English and other languages there, especially for learning those languages, but they also have Richard III by William Shakespeare. This is the Royal Shakespeare Company edition. It's focused on performance and how the play has been performed throughout the years and many interpretations. I've never read Richard III. I know what it is about. I'm eager to read it because it does have some great monologues. The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. I'm not very sure if this is YA or not. I'm like 10 years late to this hype train. Picked it up because of a challenge that I had with a friend. I've never wanted to read Markus Zusak. I've never felt like he's an author that I might enjoy, but I've always been curious about The Book Thief because it has become such a classic. Let's see how that turns out. Then the last book I got there was one that I absolutely adored from the first time, and it's a non-fiction book called Curiosity: How Science Became Interested in Everything by Philip Ball. About curiosity as a word, as a concept, how it was construed as negative by religion and how it became associated with modern science. I'm very excited for this book. Then we have Saraiva bookstores, and I only bought 2 books there, but one of them I really love and the other I'm really happy about. One of them is Different Seasons by Stephen King. I haven't read as much Stephen King, which is weird considering how much I've enjoyed every single thing I've read by him. This one has 4 novellas, each one inspired in a different season, and it has the classic that inspired Shawshank Redemption. I also love this edition because it is mass paperback, but it's kind of tall and the print is not that small, so I'm happy about that. I don't know, I just feel like I have to be in a mood for Stephen King, but I feel like I am. I also bought Barking Up the Wrong Tree by Eric Barker. The subtitle for this is The Surprising Science Behind Why Everything You Know About Its Success is Mostly Wrong. It talks about success. I am at that age where I'm kind of learning what success means for me, choosing what I want to do with my life, and I feel like this book can be super helpful. I did read the conclusion before buying it because it was very important to me to see how they define success, what lessons I was going to get out of this book. Pushed in the wrong direction, this subject could be terrible, but I really like the conclusion, so I'll report back because I want to start this right away. And all the other books, all of them, I bought in 3 trips to Livraria Cultura. What I love about them is that they have the fiction section in English separated, but they have the books in English that are non-fiction or thematic, they have it together with the rest of the book, so which I think is awesome. First, I have actually a book in Portuguese, The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. So Brazil has a really good output of pocket books. They produce beautiful, affordable pocket editions. Of course, I don't read that much Portuguese, but I can read some. And the advantage with Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray is that I've read it a number of times and I know it really well. I started reading it at the bookstore. I could understand most of it. Everything else is in English. So let's continue. I have The Art of Forgery by Noah Charney. This is a full color book that talks about forgeries in the art world. It's very anecdotal, but it's also very fascinating, and also provides a look into the art business, which, you know, it's something that I find very fascinating. Then I followed the hype, and because this was dirt cheap, it's The Book of Dust by Philip Pullman, volume 1 in La Belle Sauvage. So I have the Northern Lights trilogy. I have the beautiful Evermind's library bind-up. I have not read it, and I don't know what inclined me beyond that. I read the first few chapters and I enjoyed them. Yeah, I'm probably going to read it after I read Northern Lights, although this is a prequel. Now, a book that I'm currently reading is A Pale View of the Hills by Kazuo Ishiguro. It's funny because I read one full book by Kazuo Ishiguro, one short story. The book I really enjoyed was An Artist of the Floating World. Short story, not so much. It's the first short story in the collection Nocturnes, but I keep buying his books. I'm going to read Never Let Me Go this month. This is, I believe, his debut novel. Is about a woman who thinks back on a summer when she was not yet a mother, and she sort of reflects on motherhood in relation to her friendship with another Japanese woman who was a mother. The protagonist now lives in England and her daughter has committed suicide. It's beautifully written. I have read about, I don't know, 20 pages and I'm completely engrossed. Then I have The Good Soldier by Ford Madox Ford. This is about two couples. It's supposed to be fascinating and funny and poignant and have influenced all these 20th century writers. Then I have A Brief History of Manga by Helen McCarthy. The first thing that I noticed was that this was obviously very modern because it has Death Note and Kuroshitsuji. The second thing, though, was that it is an Occidental name. Kind of, Then I want to read a history of manga by a Western author. However, it is very beautiful. And it has like timelines and pictures, and it's very compact but very complete, which is kind of a favorite mix of mine. And I got it because it was also very cheap. You can see the books piling up. This is my life, guys. I'm going to die drowned in books. Venice by Jan Morris. Travel writing is something that I've recently become very interested in. This is about Venice. Last year I went to Venice for the first time. It was a very lovely place, very enchanting. It has a weird sort of vibe because Piazza San Marco is a very touristy place, but then there are some other places that are very deserted. It's just a very charming, strange city, and I want to know more about it. This is a very complete account. Then I got something that has been on my wish list for the longest time, and I was so happy to see it there. The Essential Ginsberg. It's edited by Michael Schumacher. Letters, poems, essays, photographs, and I really admire Allen Ginsberg. He really aimed to elevate the beat writings and philosophy into an actual philosophy, something that was sustainable and teachable. I firmly believe we wouldn't respect the beats the way we do now if it weren't for Allen Ginsberg. We're almost there. So I also bought an Oxford classic with the selected writings of Galileo. I don't know what possessed me other than the beautiful cover, except that I was reading a letter here that I thought was very sassy and very funny, and I wanted to learn more. I also got Beasts of No Nation, a novel by, sorry if I pronounced this wrong, Uzodinma Iweala. But this is a very short novel about Agu, a young boy in an unnamed West African nation who is recruited into a unit of guerrilla fighters as civil war engulfs his country. I haven't read many books written in or about Africa. This is a step towards that. Then A Beautiful Finding, Fame by Daniel Kelman. I do not remember what this is about because a long time ago I discovered F by Daniel Kelman and absolutely adored it. Then I read Mian Kaminsky and I also loved it, and I want to read everything he's ever written. So I did read the summaries back at the time, but I haven't since. Then I have The Human Age by Diane Ackerman, the author of The Zookeeper's Wife, which I haven't read, but I know there's a movie about. So this is about humans' relationship with nature and our impact within the world, but it doesn't take a preachy perspective of what I read again. This was in a section called Philosophy of Science, so it's not so much about the science itself, but reflecting, I'm sorry, this is so long. Listen Out Loud by Ron Weisner with Alad Goldsher. Forward by Gladys Knight. So I don't expect this to be superbly written because clearly the person who wrote it needed help, but the subtitle for this is A Life in Music, Managing McCartney, Madonna, and Michael Jackson. And each chapter is about one artist this person managed. And I couldn't say no to that because I'm very interested in fame, and the whole sort of pop music industry is fascinating to me. It's terrorizing, but fascinating. Then I have Great Books, My Adventures with Homer, Rousseau, Woolf, and Other Indestructible Writers of the Western World by David Denby, with a new introduction. I realized there are lots of books like this, some of them better than others. What made me pick up this book is that the way in which David Denby writes about his experiences, especially teaching classics, was so funny to me and so relatable that I just had to pick it up. And it was also very, very cheap. So I don't pick up books solely because they're cheap, but if they're interesting and then I find out they're cheap, it just makes me so happy. I also have Stolen Beauty by Lori Lico Albanese, and this is a historical novel about Adele Bloch-Bauer, one of the muses by Gustav Klimt, and I think it's also her niece Maria Altman. Is this related to the movie with Helen Mirren and Ryan Reynolds? It's about art, it's about history. What's not to love? Commando, the autobiography of Johnny Ramone. So here's the thing, one of the challenges was to buy a book with an instrument on the cover. I do like the Ramones. I'm not crazy about the Ramones. It's not a subject I would have visited bookishly if it weren't for this challenge, but I actually started reading it and it was quite entertaining. You know, one of my favorite books last year was Uncommon People, and fame, history, and celebrity culture are things that are very interesting to me. So I am enjoying this book. And then finally I have How Star Wars Conquered the Universe by Chris Taylor. It says, the past, present, and future of a multi-billion-dollar franchise. This talks about Star Wars, how it was conceived, and how it became a worldwide phenomenon. It also considers the prequels, how they were made, what was their impact, and the reasons people rejected them so strongly, and then it talks about the Disney era. I think though that part is only when Disney had just acquired the franchise and not the movies themselves. It sounded fascinating. I'm not a Star Wars fan. I like the movies, some of them, and I'm very interested in the way it explores politics, but I'm fascinated by it as a phenomenon. I'm fascinated by lots of things, which is why I buy so many books. And once again, it was also quite cheap. So that's all. I bought 25 books on this trip, which is an excess. But if it makes any of us feel any better, I'm already halfway through 3 of them. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you've read any of these books or want to read them, please leave a comment down below. And also tell me, what are you reading? Or have you bought any good books recently? Also, do you buy books when you go on vacation? And that's it. See you next time.